Okay, this is the beginning of Lab 2, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting off with some PowerShell commands, and I'm wanting you to go ahead and find these on your own, like how do you rename the server, like server 1 or server 2. You can go ahead and do them. Uh, don't actually rename the server, but write the commands down. What is the command to restart a computer without delay? What is the command? And by the way, do these in PowerShell. Not in command line. The command line to check the time. Here's one to set an IP address. This is kind of important when we have a server core. What is the command line to join a server to the domain, and what does scconfig do? And I'll demonstrate that in a minute. And then what are the commands to turn a full server installation into a server core? And I want you to do that on server 2. And in just a second I will go ahead and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go to server 2, and we're going to go ahead and log in there. And interestingly enough, note what password you have to use to log into server 2. And I should have explained that in class. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the commands to remove the graphical interface from the server 2. I'm not going to show those to you. I want you to find them online. And they may call it desktop experience, removing the desktop experience. So when you do a Google search, and here I'll go ahead and I'll just go ahead and do a Google search on here and show you how that would look. So it would be PowerShell command to remove the, or actually let's do it this way, to convert a 2012 server to a server core. And that should get you some switch between full server core and core. This one probably will have all the information that you need. And just taking a quick look. Yeah, here's definitely, this is the commands to do that. And they're showing you, yeah, and now you're in a server core. So that little search will help you do that. I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I will resume the video. Okay, that took about 15 minutes. I ran the 2 commands that are necessary. And you'll see that you get just basically a command line or command prompt on the screen. Don't hit the X here because that'll make the command prompt disappear, and then you just have a blank screen. So you have to be careful about that. Another thing to do is just do the scconfig. And when you do that, that gives you sort of a menu-driven thing for basic settings. Notice you're already in the domain. You have a server name that you want. But you could select any one of these, and then it will do the task that is associated with that. And that's just sort of basic setup stuff. 4 is kind of an important one to us. Actually, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But 4, what it does is it enables the core server to be managed by another server, and we're going to set that up in server 1. I'll go ahead and log in here. And so if we go look at the server, if you click on the All Servers tab, we can actually add server 2 here, but we can't administrate it unless we have enabled this feature right here, which this basically undoes firewall settings so that we can manage that server from another server from this graphical interface. And so let's go ahead and we're going to add the server now to this interface. And the easiest way to do that is go to Tasks. Sorry, you can right-click on All Servers and Add Server. And all you have to do is put in SRV2, and we can do find now. That server shows up. and press OK. And so that's going to be connecting here shortly. And server 2 basically would be very difficult to administrate from here. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll put the server administration tools on workstation 1. We can actually administrate it from workstation 1, but in this case we're going to be able to administrate both servers from server 1. The next thing is to do the DISM command. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is log on to the server 1, and then I'll open up Explorer, and I'm going to create 3 new folders. So I'll create the first one is called WIM, and I might do the others through command line. And then mount. So I'll have you create those 3 directories, and of course you'll see them happen right here. Good to practice that command line. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and right click this top tab up here. We're going to go settings, and then we're going to go to the options tab, and then we're going to go to the shares, and then we're going to enable until next power off a share. We're going to map the drive, and then we're going to go ahead and add next, and then we're going to browse. We're going to browse to the C drive, and this is on the host ISOs. Okay, and next, and we want to make sure that enable this share and finish, and then OK. And now when we go to our PC, we should see a Z drive. More than likely you'll see a Z drive just like I do. Then we want to go ahead and open up the Z drive, and there's ISOs. What that is if you go to the host system, and this is on the host system now, and I go to the C drive, that is this folder. We're now accessing a folder on the C drive of the host system for the virtual machine. And then we're going to open the ISOs, and we're going to go ahead and right click on this file right here, the server 2012, and we're going to copy it. And we're going to go to the C drive on this machine, and we're going to go ahead and go to ISO, and we're going to paste it there. And that'll take a few seconds, and I'll start the video again when that's done. Okay, once this is done, we're going to go ahead and right click this, and we're going to do mount. And then you want to go to sources, and what we're looking for is let's see, the file name is install.wim right here, and just right click that, copy. And what I want to do is I want to go to the C drive, and we're going to go to the WIM folder, and we're going to paste it there. And that'll take a few seconds. Okay, and then we want to go back to it'll show up as an E drive. You want to right click this and eject. That dismounts that file. Then you want to go ahead and open up a command prompt as administrator. This one's not administrators. Oh, It is as an administrator, but I'm going to go ahead, open up another one. Command prompt as admin. And then we're going to run the command to find the images. And where you'll find this command, I'll show this to you, and you can see it also here. This command is in recording 255. And so here we're looking at the image files that are contained within this ISO. What we're going to do is we're going to mount index 2 in just a moment. And then, so we're going to go ahead and mount this particular index 2 folder. Okay, this has successfully mounted. What I want to make sure you also understand in C:"mount is where this is going to be mounted. So if I go to the C drive and mount, now you'll see the mounted folder inside here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add the DNS service to this particular file. So I'm going to paste that in here. And so we're going to put in the full server role of DNS, and that's going to take a few moments. Then what we're going to do is we're going to dismount this, but we're going to commit the changes so that these changes are permanently in this file. And so when we deploy a server using index 2, which is, if I remember right, is a 2008 R2 standard. So if we use this to install a 2008 R2 standard, what will end up happening is DNS will be automatically installed. This is a way of sort of pre-staging machines for use in your system. And I'm going to go ahead and run the command to commit that. Okay, and so those changes are committed, and next time you deploy the machine using this as an ISO file, DNS will be pre-staged or pre-installed. Not configured, simply the DNS service will be on that particular machine. And you could do this with other services as well. Okay, so I'm going to have you switch over to server 2, and I'm going to have you do some PowerShell on server 2. Might get a strange screen. Let's see. I'm going to do view fit guest now. See if that takes away some of that strangeness on the screen. And so we're in the sconfig, and so I want to exit the sconfig. So to do that, I just do 15, and now we're at a command prompt, and then we want to run PowerShell. That turns the command prompt into a PowerShell. So it is now PowerShell. I'm going to do a CLS, see if that'll clear the screen. There we go. Kind of a nicer screen. And then I'm going to have you run git dash Windows. And one of the neat things is when you're in PowerShell, I'm not sure if this is going to do it or not because we're doing it from command prompt. You should be able to hit the tab key and it should tab through. Okay, so that's, oh, I think I have a misspelling. Let's see if that. Get Windows, there we go. Get Windows. Whoops, I just went past it. I'll put an F there. Windows feature. And so, it'll scroll through all the commands that have the same spelling until you get to the right one. It's also a way of confirming you're putting things in correctly. And so we're going to do server name. And we're going to do SRV2. Oh, I don't think I even need to put in the server name. And that should have been a dash, not an underscore. Okay, yeah, it doesn't like that, so we're going to get rid of that. And so that's showing all the Windows features that are installed on here. DNS should be on here. Let's see, where are we at here? So we have the Active Directory domain services. Remember installing that. DNS, that's always installed. File and print storage is always added when you add the server. File server is on here. Storage service. And the .NET framework. TCP port sharing. Group policy management, and that's always installed. Group policy management, media foundation, remote server administration tools, role administration tools, and there's other things that are also installed on here. And what I want you to do is find the PowerShell command to add the print server service to this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and run that command, and then I'll show you the difference. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've added the service, but I want to show you what it looked like before. So I'm scrolling up to where we would see that service. Print server right here. So I will show you right here. And we will look at the services now as they exist. And this now has print server, so we've added print server using a PowerShell command. And that is using PowerShell to add a service. And I'm going to go ahead and run an exit out of here. And that takes us out of PowerShell. And then if we want to do sconfig, that brings us back into this menu. And I'm gonna leave it in that state and let it go ahead and time out, or sit in that state. And I'll go back to server 1. And I'm going to go ahead and close this command prompt. And so we're going to be adding a NIC card to server 1. Actually, you don't need to turn off server 1. So my instructions, they'll work as stated in the lab. But if you want to do it this way, you can go ahead and go just directly to settings. And you can go to the add network adapter. We'll leave it as NAT. And then press OK, and it just restarts the machine, and then that NIC is there. The instructions in the lab are not exactly the same, but that should work. Okay, so now we're going to change the adapter settings, and what I want to do is just right-click here on this and open Networking Sharing Center, and then we'll look at the adapters. And you'll notice we have 2 adapters. And you can open this one up, and I think this is going to be our original one, IPv4. It has 5 on it, and let's see, we have a default gateway. Okay. The other side has a default gateway too, so it's complaining about that. But this is the one that is configured. This is the one that is not configured. We're going to go to the properties here. IPv4, and we're going to put in 192, 168, 100, and I'm going to use the number 8, 255, 255, 255.0 with the default gateway set as it is, and 127.0.0.1, and press OK. And again, you have 2 default gateways. So it's complaining about that, but that's not a problem. It's going to be fine. Then I'm going to go to the IPv6. Oh, okay, so it's taking its time. Just a moment. Okay, so it didn't like the multiple default gateways, so it actually just removed it on its own. So we'll just go ahead and go with that. And then press OK. And the IPv6. And we're going to use 2001 DB8 1000 :8. And /64, and the default gateway will be FE. Oh, that's right. It doesn't like multiple default gateways, so we won't put that in there. And we'll put ::1 as the DNS server, so that we have a DNS server. Now we have the IPv4 and IPv6 set up on that machine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do NIC teaming. So we can close this screen, and we can close this screen. One of the things I like to do is go to Workstation 1 and just do some verification before I do anything else. Okay, so I'm going to open up a command prompt. And easiest way is just to right-click on the start. And we'll open up a command prompt. I'm going to open up a couple of them. And I'm going to resize them a little bit. And we're going to do some pinging. We're going to ping (100.5), and I'm going to just do a -t, so it'll be a continuous ping. And over here, I'm going to do a ping (8), I think is what we set it for, and we're going to do a -t as well. And things are running a little slow, but I'll go ahead and we'll just work with it. So both of those are pinging. We are receiving pings from them. And I'm going to go ahead back to my server 1, so we know that both NIC cards are actually actively working. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Server Manager. I'm going to go to the local server, and then it says NIC teaming is disabled. We're going to click on the disabled, and we're going to go Task, New Team, and I'm just going to call it Test. So we can. Now, one of the things that's going to happen as we do this lab, unfortunately, we have one physical NIC. It is being accessed by the virtualization software 3 different ways: through bridged, NATed, and through host only. And then we have 2 NIC cards that are accessing the virtual NIC, which is accessing a single physical NIC. So you can see that the software is a little bit challenged on what exactly is happening here. So this works to a point, but it's not perfect. If we had a real system with 2 NICs and virtualization going on those 2 NICs, this would work much, much better. Okay, and then they have several settings that are available to you here. There's static teaming and switch independent. Static teaming means you're on a single switch. Switch independent means you're on 2 physically different switches. Or LACP, which is a protocol, a layer 2 protocol that binds 2 NIC cards together to act as a single NIC. That is all the way down to layer 2. This is not going to be happening all the way to layer 2 the way we're doing it. We're just going to do switch independent. And then load balancing, we can either do dynamic, or we can hash by the MAC address, or we could use a Hyper-V port. I'm going to go ahead and just use dynamic. And then if we want to have a standby NIC, here's the deal. So if we have the 2 NICs on there and we want to use 100% of the bandwidth, we just leave it on as none. But if we want to have one of them actually working and then the other one maybe kick in when we need it to, so if like NIC 1 fails, NIC 2 actually activates, we could do that here. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave them both on so that they both will actively uh, pass traffic. Um, this has a lot to do with something called the affinity problem, which is some applications track down to layer 2 the connection, and if any of that changes, the application is sensitive to that and will terminate the session. So, but we're not going to go to that level. Anyway, we're going to just say none. All adapters are active. Press OK, and this should create our NIC team. When it first comes live, you'll see a failed connection pending. And after a period of time, they will both go active. And we can go ahead and close this screen. And then we're going to go to right-click on the network interface card. Make sure you're not down below here. You have to be actually on the host system. These icons have to do with VMware. And we're going to open Network and Sharing Center, Adapter Settings. And we now have a third adapter, which is our NIC teaming. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this, Properties. We're going to go to the TCP/IP version 4. And we'll set it up for 192.168.100.11 and 127.0.0.1. And then we're going to press OK. And then we're going to go to our IPv6 and 2001:DB8:1000 : and I'm going to use a B. And then the default gateway, we can put FE80::1, and preferred DNS server would be ::1 myself. Okay, so that is all set up. Okay, so now we're going to go. We're going to go ahead and press OK here. Make sure you use OK. And now that NIC team is set up. We're going to go to Workstation 1 just as a. Now notice both of these are timing out. They should still be going. Let's see. Let's make sure. Yes, there we go. And then we're going to go to a new command prompt. This will be a third one. Set that one up right here, and we're going to ping 192.168.100.11. And notice that now is responsive. The two individual NICs are no longer responsive, and the combined NIC is now responsive. The other thing we could do is we could ping 2001:DB8:1000:B, and that is also successful. So that's kind of an interesting experiment to see those. The failover, I haven't been able to get it to work. I can show you what I get. So if I go over here and you go down to the, where the VMware icons are, and you right-click one of those computer icons, you can click disconnect. When I do that, I'm not getting the results I would suspect. I can try it here and see if I'm... Well, it is working now. Okay, and I can try the other NIC. So I will connect this one back up and disconnect this one. And if the team is working, this should ping. Okay, here's what I'm getting. And so it's just, it's not able to fail over like it should. And again, I think it's because I'm virtualizing a virtualization. And it's just too much for the system to handle. So normally I would test the failover by, unplugging one of these. That doesn't seem to be working too well. Okay, at the end of this, I'm going to have you do several pings and things like that. But at the end of this, it's very important that you do this. Make sure this will really mess your system up if you don't do this. Go to your NIC teaming where it says enabled. Go to your team right here, highlight it, and delete the team. Okay, that's done correctly. You should be able to open up Network and Sharing Center, and you'll only see 2 adapters. Okay, at that point, I want you to go to SRv1, go to the settings. Then it says where network adapter 2 is, or the new network. Make sure you get the right one, or this will really mess up your system. Get the right one. And then what I want you to do is I want you to remove that NIC. Press OK. Now when you look at this, you should only see one NIC. Adapter settings. Now we see one NIC. And make sure it's the right one, and it is configured with the 5 address. Got to get this correct. And then the best thing to do is just simply restart the system. And that is the end of lab 2.